Everybody. Hi, everyone. It looks like we're live. Welcome. Tonight is November 10th, at least in this part of the world, and this is Connected Courses. And what we have tonight is we are just beginning our first, the beginning of the Unit 5 on co-learning. And this particular unit will be co-facilitated with Howard Rheingold, who's over here, Mia Zamora as well. So the three of us will be co-hosting or co-facilitating this unit. But to get it started off tonight, what we have is a bit of a conversation, and we're hoping that you'll enjoy this, and I hope that you're out there watching in Twitter land as well. We have a number of people who will introduce themselves in a bit here. But did we want to, Howard and Mia, do you want to introduce yourselves first, and then we can get to the panel and what we're going to talk about tonight?
Go ahead, Mia.
Sure. I'm Mia Zamora. I'm Associate Professor of English at Kean University. I also direct the Kean University Writing Project.
Hi, I'm Howard Rheingold. I am a lecturer at Stanford in the Communications Department, and I am delighted to be co-facilitating this with Alec and Mia. This is going to be a good, juicy 2 weeks.
And I'm Alec Couros. I'm from the Faculty of Education, University of Regina, where I teach EdTech and media. Recently, actually it was about a year ago, a bit more than a year, almost 2 years, I guess. I facilitated a course. It started January 2013, and it was probably the first real bigger MOOC that I've ever taught. It all came down to a single tweet. I think sometime in December or November 2012, it might have been even earlier than that. I basically just asked Twitter for if anyone was interested in putting together a massive open online course, and a bunch of people decided to help me with it. And before we knew it, we had about 2,000 people signed up, and that was just kind of an amazing thing that happened. So what was really neat about this MOOC, and if you want to know more about the MOOC itself, you can go to etmooc, etmooc.org, and there's a lot of information on it there. But what's really interesting about it, I think it was only supposed to run a few weeks, and it just never sort of died. And that's a testament to some of the people we actually invited tonight who have been doing different iterations of the MOOC. There's a post-etmooc group, and there was a real hardcore group of people who just sort of never kind of went away, I guess, in that sense, and became friends and bonded through this particular experience. So what we're hoping to do tonight is kind of get a sense of what those people, how they bonded, what that means for perhaps how we might look at the development of open online courses, and especially in how we develop community in open online courses. And I'm hoping we can find some insight. So we've invited a number of people. Hopefully I think we might have lost someone there, but we have Aaron Luong, we have Jeff Morrell, we have Rhonda Jessen, we have Susan Spellman-Kahn, and we have one more who just kind of disappeared. I think Paul Signorelli also disappeared, but I'm sure he'll be back in a second. So I'm wondering if we could start with Aaron and just kind of give a brief introduction of who you are, and we'll just kind of go down to Jeff and so on. Aaron?
Yeah, no, definitely. Thanks for inviting me tonight, Alec. My name's Erin Luong, and I'm a high school counselor in Calgary at a self-directed learning high school. And my very first MOOC ever was at MOOC way back January 2013. And since then, I have participated in PostAdmin and just recently finished being a co-conspirator for OCL MOOC, so that was kind of exciting.
Awesome. Thanks, Aaron. Can we pass it down to Jeff? Here you go,
Sure.
Jeff.
Yeah, let me unmute myself here. I'm Jeff Merrill. I'm coming from outside of Chicago, Illinois. I'm officially Associate Director at the Master's Program in Learning and Organizational Change at Northwestern University. I'm sure we'll hear this theme from everybody. The MOOC experience was a really interesting one for all of us. I think it was sort of a seminal piece, certainly for me, both from the teaching and the learning side. So I'm looking forward to kind of unpacking some of the things that we've now reflected on over the past year or so. So really happy to be here.
Awesome. Great to have you, Jeff. I'll pass it to Paul. Hopefully you're there, Paul. Oh, he might be having some trouble with his connection. Maybe we'll just go to Rhonda for now. Oh, Paul, you came back. Are you there? Great.
Having tech difficulties, but then again, that's where we all are. Yeah. Ditto to what everybody else has said. At MOOC was my introduction to MOOCs. I will never forget the evening where I had finished up a class I was teaching, went on to find out what it was all about, and about 3 hours later finally logged off after my first session and absolutely fell in love with the possibilities of connected learning, connectivist MOOCs, and all that we're doing here in C courses. So I'm glad to be here this evening.
Cool. And Rhonda, thanks, Paul.
Hi, I'm happy to be here tonight. Glad to be joining you all from Edmonton. I'm a media and computer teacher, and for the last 2 years I've been seconded to Alberta Education, where I'm working on a really exciting draft curriculum for careers in technology for elective courses. And at MOOC was my first MOOC experience, and I've gone on to participate in several different MOOCs and community building experiences, and yeah, I'm excited to talk about the experiences tonight.
Thank you, Rhonda. And Susan, would you mind what about you?
Hi, I'm Susan Spellman-Can, and I'm a high school counselor in Calgary, Alberta. And I like to say that 2 years ago, I really wasn't involved in any kind of social media and knew very little about technology, and so discovered at MOOC, and on the last day, the very last day, saw a tweet and jumped in. Obviously I was on Twitter, but I didn't use it very much, and it was the best decision ever, and as a result I'm connected to so many great people, and I look forward to hearing from you all tonight.
Awesome. All right, so I was going to just start off with a little bit about at MOOC and then just going to go into some questions if that was okay. So at MOOC was around educational technology and media. And the way, what was interesting about it, if you go to the site, it's at mooc.org, you can see a number of different places where you can drop down. So under the first window, there's actually you'll see that there's actually a page called Course Conspirators or Conspirators. And what was neat about that, I'm not going to show it right now, but one of the things that I think really helped work in terms of building community is similar to Connected Courses, is that was a number of people that developed it. And it was from all over the world. And I was amazed by that, how many people actually, there's probably about 20 or so there, that kind of were going to be part of it. And because I think a lot of people were involved, it also brought their networks in. So instantly we had a lot of people connected in that way. I just want to say a couple more points and then kind of go on to questions. But another thing that I think really helped work with it, and I think some people can talk about, we actually did something called a lip dub, which was which I think was one of the first things that we did. So we had 5 units. Very first unit, we wanted to make sure within 2 weeks that we could actually do something that was kind of neat. And so we did this, what's called an @MOOC lip dub. And if you Googled making of @MOOC lip dub, you can actually find sort of the process that we did. So we voted on a song. We got people to send up really short videos with a bit of a lip dub. And for me, I think that was kind of a neat start because it got us doing something fairly tangible, connected as a group, and got people to know names a bit different. So that was kind of one of the neat things that I think helped to build community. But ultimately, I think when you can try a bunch of different things, you can try to build a community, a course together. But one of the things that I think really worked really well was some of the unknown. I think for me, sometimes it's the right people at the right time. But I really want to get insight to what worked and what didn't. So the first question I have tonight, and if the our guests here can listen very carefully, and of course anyone out there who's listening, I guess I wanted to ask this question, and I can just open up to anyone who wants to answer. Is what made you particularly like the community? Please describe those things. What worked and what didn't work. So what made this a bit different in terms of things we've done before? What made us more of a community? And I'd like to open that to anyone willing to take that on. So I think that's an important question, for me at least. Anyone want to take that on?
Okay, for me, sorry. Sure. One of the things for me, two things. One, the facilitator, like Alec, was super connected with people. So I remember the first time I ever tried a Google Hangout, and we accidentally invited you to it, Alec, and you showed up in it. And then you still kind of joked around with us and let us play around and said it's okay to make mistakes, it's okay to try things out and everything like that. So it encouraged me to keep working at things.
Anyone else want to add a few 2 cents here?
Yeah, this is Jeff. I would second that, actually. I think the whole startup, I mean, I think there was a culture created early on in that, I mean, I forget what you call it, the orientation period, that allowed us all to just sort of get to know each other, feel safe, you know, as we were messing around, and begin building those relationships outside of getting down to the task of trying to answer some question or figure out something. So it really, I mean, and the lip dub thing was you know, a stroke of genius, I think. It really did kind of pull together a lot of people in a lot of different ways. Even if you didn't participate in it, it really sort of set the tone of the culture of what the course was going to be like, or what the activity was going to be like.
Yeah, I agree. I think the lip dub, because it pushed so many people out of their comfort zone. It really was, and so many people were able to participate, and then there was a tangible sort of proof of that. I think that really helped to develop the community early on.
Yeah, it was. I would say as well. I felt extremely connected right away, and the lip dub was so much fun that you involved people in your community. And then it was fun to even look back later and realize, hey, I know those people. That's pretty exciting. And that we were connected worldwide. That was just fabulous to know that we weren't just connected in our own communities. There was a far-reaching community that allowed us to get connected pretty quick.
I would jump in and agree with what everybody else has just said about the immediate sense of community and connection there. I felt that from the first night I was on, and I was really quite taken, touched, and impressed and inspired by the fact that occasionally I would blog something or tweet something out, and Alec would be right there commenting. I thought, how many learning experiences have I had where I got that kind of immediate, positive, supportive support from somebody who was leading a class? That was fabulous, and it really has affected the way that I approach learning with the learners that I serve.
It seems that many of your comments sort of suggest that the tone that was hit in the opening of the experiment was one of playfulness and fun. And I think that's a really important element in learning. It seems that in building community around a learning experience, fun needs to be had. And it seemed in rolling out at MOOC, the facilitators had that in mind first and foremost. Is that correct?
I think.
Go ahead, Jess. Sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry. I was going to say, fun was definitely a part of the things that drew me to MOOC. Like we had the lip dub, and then I think the second week or so we had like a digital storytelling challenge where it was like, see if you can come up with a different way to tell a story every day for 14 days. And so it was, things were enough work that you had to concentrate, but not so overwhelming that you felt like you would get it wrong. But it got you in the habit of being engaged with the community.
And I think right off, one of the things that struck me, especially someone who wasn't, I would absolutely say at that time I was not good at technology, was it was okay to make mistakes. And everyone let us know that that was okay. So that felt really important for me, that it's just get in there, do it. It doesn't matter. Nobody cares. You've got all these supportive people there. They're fabulous. They give you encouragement. I felt encouragement right away from everybody, not just the people that were leading the MOOC, but people that were in the MOOC. They would always give feedback, the comments. They happened right from the beginning.
Yeah. So I wonder there. I mean, I kind of forgot actually that there was an orientation week before we got into the other pieces that was simply about connecting and doing some, just getting to know each other. I mean, that's something that you see in a lot of online courses, but I think it may have been something that allowed us to be more playful and have some time with. And so yeah, it's interesting how even like a lot of this stuff wasn't intentional. You don't. As an instructor or co-collaborator, you don't just say, this is how I'm going to approach things. There was actually, if people haven't had a chance, Dean Sharesky actually has a great slide share and presentation. He does some good stuff around the idea of whatever happened to play. And I really like some of the things that he's done and, really bringing play back into education. And I think a lot of, if I look at the people in this room, there's a lot of serious sort of educators that have done a lot of things. I'm not serious in the sort of serious sense, but well-accomplished people that perhaps don't on the everyday basis get a chance to just play and experiment and fail, and then be supported for their failure. So it was almost like to me, I think it almost felt like a little break from the monotony of other types of learning or other types of work, and it allowed us to kind of express ourselves in different ways. And I certainly felt that way too. And I think the value of play, as many of you mentioned, really did make a difference.
And at least having set that up, that there was that sense of play, really did differentiate this from so many of the learning experiences that we engage in and then we forget. The sense of playfulness that you and everyone else encouraged made this something that I personally keep going back to. Every time I start to work with a new group of learners, it's one of the first things I ask myself, what can I do to make this playful? What can I do to keep them engaged and to make them feel like it really is co-learning rather than somebody having to absorb things, pass a test, and then forget it?
Right. Yeah. Any thoughts from Howard or Mia in terms of, or questions upon this particular one?
Well, with university students, sometimes it's hard to get them into that play space, particularly if what you want is for them to play. So I think they're very focused on what they think the teacher wants and what's going to be on the test, and they've been trained to look at it that way. I think that's one of the opportunities that we have with MOOCs, because for the most part, entirely, it's not like you're taking an elective towards your requirements. You are choosing to spend part of your time in this, and I think it would be useful, and I certainly try to cultivate a sense of fun and a sense of play in the classroom, but I think there's a little bit of learned helplessness around the classroom that we don't have in the MOOC. And so I think, at the beginning, if you can get people ready to play, I'll have to say, Alan Levine, when we started C courses, getting ready, the kind of the pre-unit, he was the one who suggested, we should really make this blog talk, and let's I think within minutes of just having a conversation about that, he had photoshopped up a picture of the three of us doing blog talk. So it helps to have somebody who likes to do that all the time, and you can see that in the flow of C courses, that there are a few people who are playing with it. So having some playsters in the mix is always useful. You can't always count on it, but it's nice when they show up.
And I would probably add that it was even more than play. I think it was the kindness of the people. It was a feeling that I felt from the very beginning, and maybe it was just the combination of people that engaged, I don't know, but the people were extremely, extremely kind, and that made me want to be more engaged because of that. Even more than the play, I would say. It was about the kindness, the forgiveness of, it's okay, just get in there, it's all right, try it, do it, see what it works. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it's okay. And they were just so supportive. That made a big difference for me.
The
I
part of it
wonder.
also, Susan, was that we were giving that kindness because we knew we were going to fail 5 seconds after you did, and we wanted that kindness to come back to serve us too.
Well,
I've been wondering about that too. Sorry, go ahead. Who's that?
Oh, that was me. Sorry. I was also going to jump in. The humanness of everybody in the course, too, was very refreshing. Like, I remember having coffee in, like, one of my second Google Hangouts with, there was a whole bunch of us from across Canada who were talking about how we dyed our hair a certain color in the 80s or whatever. Like, people were connecting more than just on the academic aspects of it. We were, like, seeing each other as humans and not just like numbers in a classroom, or like it was a people connection that was going on.
And I think that's kind of what, I think that brings me to like that whole idea when Dave Cormier used to talk about community as curriculum. And I think that's kind of a really important thing is like we did have content. It's not like we weren't learning things every week, but the content was succeeded by the connecting, I think, which I think really does make a big difference. And I'm not sure if you can get away with that in every single class, and if every academic experience should be like that. But certainly that tone was set pretty early that it's not just about getting through content, it's about just connecting with people. And I think part of the kindness, Susan, came from a lot of if you look at the list of co-conspirators who helped to develop it, these are long time people who've been on the web, who've been connected through Twitter and so on. And I think that kindness, some people will tell you the internet gets you jaded, but then you look at people like Howard Rheingold, who origins back in the well and beyond. And every time I, connect with Howard, I feel like that's amazing kindness and humanity for someone that's, has the sort of the pedigree of Howard or someone in terms of the other accomplishments. So it's amazing that you can connect with someone that feels like you shouldn't even be talking to them at the same time. There's just this wonderful kindness that I think people accumulate over the web over time and just through interactions with people. And I think that can be very infectious at times too. So, anyone else want to pipe in here before we go to question 2?
I think one other thing was that there were people there from all around the world. So no matter when I went to the Twitter feed or to the Google Plus community, there was always something going on. Because there were so many people participating, there was always some sort of conversation taking place.
That's a good point. I hadn't thought of that. Yeah.
It really is in a connectivist MOOC like this, and what we're doing in C courses, being like a learner in the equivalent of a learner's candy shop. You just walk in, you want a piece of everything.
All right, so I'm going to go to the second question, and it's simply, what has happened since ETMOOC? Like for many of you here, you've been kind of, keeping on in terms of your own activities. You've done some post-MOOC, ETMOOC stuff. So what sort of things have you done to, that community that you developed in ETMOOC? What have you done to continue to nurture those connections and make new connections, I guess? So what have you kind of taken on? So the official question is, what has happened since ETMOOC? How have you helped to nurture communities, example, post-ETMOOC or other, and allowed them to flourish? So any thoughts on that? So what have you done beyond, what have you done post-ETMOOC? I know you've been busy.
I'll start, and maybe if we go left, it'll work that way. I have done so many things. I feel like it transformed what I do and a bit of who I am. So certainly kept the learning and went into post-ETMOOC. And we certainly kept on with Twitter. Sorry, kept on with Twitter chats, and then after that went into some other MOOCs, took some online MOOCs as a result of that. And after that, I've totally been involved with the school counseling community. So I now lead a chat, which I would have said I would never, ever be able to do. I lead a chat for counselors worldwide once a month. and after that went on to be a co-conspirator for OCL MOOC, which was a great experience. And for the very first time this week, I led a Blackboard Collaborate session on mental health. And again, even a year ago, I wouldn't have had the confidence or the ability to do that. And all of the things that I have done, everything online and everything I've done with school counseling online, has been a result of MOOC. Everything led to wanting to do more, learn more.
Let me jump in and just say what Susan said. I could repeat word for word, but I won't.
Yeah, go ahead.
It has been in MOOC and then following up with OCL MOOC and the other groups that we've been in. It has changed the way that I actually work with my learners substantially. I, for example, do 4-week courses for the American Library Association, and oftentimes the learners are having a little trouble. And so I just think it's sort of like connectivist learning. They're not there for a grade. I'm not there to judge them at that level. I'm there to support their learning. So we're doing an experiment right now where week 4 ended about 10 days ago, and we're still going because some of them want to complete their assignments. I think it was Alec who early on said, there's no keeping up in a connectivist MOOC. You do what you want to do, and it's all about the learning. So I'm still playing with that, even in the formal setting of a 4-week asynchronous course. And I think we're having a good time, and the learning is much more incredible and long-lasting than if we said, oh, time's up, you have to go on to something else. That's really transformative.
Yeah, Alec, I mean, I think I would add, you know, I'm another one that has participated in other MOOC activities, tried to actually, you know, cross the chasm there and actually do one on exploring personal learning networks about a year ago as well. I think you spawned, you know, it'd be interesting to count. I don't know how many, you know, very similar activities were spawned where people were taking parts of MOOC or strategies that you use there to engage other communities. I mean, you know, because you know, I follow everybody here, and we kind of run across each other. I know I've probably seen at least 5 or 6 of them, at least. So I think you know, to Paul's point too, I think it sort of changed the way that we've all thought about how we both participate and how we might, you know, initiate learning in our different, you know, areas.
One of the ways that MOOC has changed the way I teach is MOOC used a lot of crowdsourcing. So ask a question, get everybody to sort of add to a whiteboard or add their information and then reflect on that. And so even in the high school, I've been using some crowdsourcing like Poll Everywhere and stuff like that to get kids more engaged, so it's not like a talk at, but a talk with my kids when I'm running, you know, digital citizen workshops or anxiety groups or some other topics that I would never have thought of bringing up with my high school kids pre-MOOC.
We all have very similar stories. I participated in a lot of different MOOCs, learning communities, the DS 106 cult, and like Jeff, have crossed the chasm with the recent Open and Connected Learning MOOC, and also I want to mention the Open Online Experience because that definitely spawned from MOOC. It was right afterwards, although that was a year-long MOOC from some MOOC participants, and I agree. It really did sort of it wasn't a great learning opportunity for us at the time, but you really sort of role modeled how to do connected learning for us, and not just us in the room here right now, but so many people who have continued to pay it forward since MOOC.
You know, I just wanted to note that one of the characteristics of courses like MOOCs is that the community is a network that convenes in different places and different times, and you have an issue with the classroom. You've got a course, it starts on a certain date, it ends on a certain date, and the students go to take other courses with other students. From the beginning, the idea that the learning of the community is primary, I think, is something that takes a little effort in the classroom, and it's a bit of a leap for the teacher because as the subject matter expert, you have a pretty good idea of what you want your students to know. From what I've taken from connected learning to just shut up and let them discover it on their own, or try to make sense of the different texts that I've thrown at them with the syllabus, has a value in itself beyond how much of the content they're going to be able to bring to the test. And I think that the fact that we'll all see each other in another MOOC downstream, we'll see each other in tweet chats, that's something of the nature of this emerging medium that it's kind of hard to transfer to the classroom.
Well, there was something special about MOOC, and I know we all feel it, and I think it is amazing to me because I think there are about, and I don't know, I'm guessing for me personally anyway, there are about 30 to 40 people that I'm still connected with almost 2 years later, and there are a smaller group, maybe of about 20, that I'm super connected with, like super connected, that we have connected long term, and I think not only we connect and collaborate on many things, but we have become friends, and in the true sense of friendship, which is really amazing, I think. I did not expect that from a MOOC, which is pretty neat.
Oh, go ahead, Alec.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say that I'm really taken by this notion of friendship when thinking about the afterlife of a learning experience, a networked learning experience. I'm just wondering, what kind of advice you guys would offer to the connected courses community as we think about and plan out the future beyond the structured experience of developing the network. So, it seems to me that the key is this notion of friendship, and I thought maybe you guys could pick up on that a little bit more, how that might be nurtured, and the key moments that moved that forward for you.
In terms of advice, the easiest thing is just dive in, do it at a time frame that works for you, and don't feel there's a time limit on it. If you're busy,
Paul's advice is so good that sometimes he can only give it to us in small chunks.
doing that.
Well, since Paul is one of my favorite people on the planet, I can tell you one of the ways that Paul promotes friendship is he always has a joke or a laugh or observation about what's going on, and he can always sort of pull it together in a little joke or whatever. And I really appreciate the way he uses humor to build friendship and community.
I think the open piece is really important. One thing that at MOOC did that we've tried to model in our communities is being open about the fact that it's a collaborative piece, and at the same time that you're sort of pulling the course and the experience together, there's a sort of another strand, but one that's visible, where the planning is, you can kind of look behind the curtain and see what's happening, and it makes it easier if you would imagine that, oh, okay, like this is something that I could actually do. I could pull together some co-conspirators and do something. So for me, it's the open leadership piece is really important.
Yeah, and I think it is that Go ahead.
Well, I think that, I was just going to say the same thing. Like, I think a lot of it was really that openness around what we were doing. Like, when we were developing at MOOC, I remember we had a Google Plus community for the people developing the Google Plus community. And so it was like anyone could see what we were talking about and see what we were struggling with. And so if anyone there was no real private conversations when we were developing it. We tried to put everything out there. It was almost like a GitHub type thing where everything we did was totally available to everyone. And we made it pretty real in that we made all sorts of mistakes along the way. We made odd decisions, and it just kind of worked out. But I think that transparency probably helped at some point. Thinking back, that we were just willing to share, like that we didn't know what we were doing really, and we were just hoping that people came on board and wanted to participate. And I think that if your facilitators are doing that, I'm hoping that it becomes infectious for participants. But honestly, when I'm thinking about the friendship thing, there's people, in this room that I would, if I saw them, I would just have a compulsion to just, big hug. And you don't often get that from, people that you learn with online. And I just did a session 2 hours ago, and we were talking about cyber safety and the evolution sort of from cyber safety to the idea of digital citizenship, and how that's changed from stranger danger to stuff like this, where you actually move to this idea where everyone on the internet's a dog, and they're horrible people and they're predators, to the total opposite side of this, where you're hugging people online and just making new friendships. And it's like bizarre when you look at it, but that's two very different and polarized viewpoints of the web, being all scary, and not that there's not bad stuff out there, but all of a sudden people were providing a lot of trust in the community, a trust in individuals, trust in the process, and I think that does help a little bit in terms of the whole friendship idea.
Well, and it was a process. So, I mean, I know I certainly didn't jump in there with all, feet in the beginning. And because of the way that the connections were made, because of all the collaboration, because of the things that we had to do together, because of the feedback that we got, it was a process of developing that trust. And even after at MOOC, it was a process. So when we did open spokes and we started blogging and sharing and commenting and seeing each other and checking each other out online, and again, I think we had phenomenal, and I mean this, phenomenal modeling. And Alec, you created that, and there is no doubt about that the modeling helps other people know what to do, how to do it, how to present themselves, and that was ongoing and done so exceptionally well that allowed others of us to take a leadership role and try to create that again and again. And I think that's why we did it, because we wanted to pay back for the, I believe, a gift that we had been given.
One of the things that Alec did really well to make people feel special and connected is he uses people's names. So when you join something like a Blackboard Collaborate and he notices you pop in on the side, he'll say, "Oh, hey, Erin, nice to see you today," or, "Oh, hi, Rhonda, hi, Susan, you're here today, hi, Paul." It's those little tiny touches that make it feel like home and not just like a big nothingness.
Absolutely agree with what Erin just said. We forget, I think, sometimes online that this really is a learning space. We need to treat it with the same warmth, the same welcoming thing we would face-to-face in a classroom. If we create that, as you...
It's so bad.
Again, back to that idea where you can only give us so much advice. It's too strong in this space.
I think one thing for people who are thinking of teaching connected courses is to understand that it does take more of your time. I was going to say it takes more work, but if you really enjoy the thing about being kind to people is that when you've got a group of kind people, then it's like a balloon and you all rise up together. People want to improve the state of their community by welcoming people. It really helps at the beginning, if you're the teacher or you're the facilitator, to comment on people's posts and use their name. It's something that throughout what they now call social media, I think the single most important indicator of whether somebody is going to come back is whether they post something and somebody else comments and uses their name. It's really simple. It takes a little bit of work to model that at the beginning. If you're a teacher or a facilitator and you've got 15 students or 1,000 learners, you spend some time just going around and not just saying hi, but reading their post and having something to say about it. You gotta love doing it because it is more time. I keep resisting saying it's more work. If you love doing it, it's enjoyable, but it's not the same thing as your classic classroom where you can put more boundaries on how much time you spend on each student.
So I want to ask a question, number 3 here. I think I'll put it in the chat, but for those people who don't see it, I guess the question is about who he lost. I mean, it sounds like this is the success story. You're all here because that MOOC made sense to you and you felt connected for whatever reason, and you expressed a lot of different reasons. But I've been thinking a lot about access today. I mean, I've been looking at MOOC stats, especially the big ex-MOOCs, and you're looking at the people that are taking MOOCs, for instance, are people that already have a lot of status and privilege, and there's a lot of people who have advanced degrees who are taking MOOCs, and there's a lot of if you think developing world, for instance, there are people who who need things like having a high-speed internet access, especially with a MOOC like this, having enough free time to participate. And besides even all that access, I mean, that's really sort of when we get to the digital divide. And I don't know if that MOOC ever targeted that part of the world, because I think it's different. It's a different. I mean, there was no real specific target anyway. But I'm thinking about there's a bunch of people who did sign up, and we lost them. And I guess there's partly is like, why do we lose people? Is it because I didn't say their name in the webinar? I mean, that's all. Those are really good points. Is it something we can do differently? Is this not the type of learning? Is this something it's hard to say because you're speaking for people who perhaps weren't there the whole time. But I guess maybe you've heard something that you can somehow speculate, like, why do people drop out from community-type courses like this? How would you speculate? And I guess, so the actual question is, how about those we lost? How do we make online communities more inclusive, engaging, and accessible for learners with all levels of experience and skill? What is particularly challenging when we consider community in these massive open online courses, or just open online courses? What do we have to consider? Because we don't obviously want to lose anyone. But, I mean, so what are the reasons why, and how do we fix it?
Well, I have.
Okay.
Sorry, Susan, go ahead.
No, go ahead, you go ahead. I'll speak after you.
I have dropped out of a lot of MOOCs for a lot of reasons, often busyness, and sometimes because I got what I wanted. But sometimes I loop back, and I think that the multiple entry points is really, really important. That if you drift off or you didn't catch the opening cue, that there's an opportunity, and Jeff did that in the PLN one, and even at MOOC had that because I didn't join until partway through the first week. And even with our PostAdmin community, we were working along for about a year, and then when we did the MOOC anniversary events, Susan was really excellent about inviting people that hadn't been connected, so they had another chance to reconnect. That's important.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah,
and we had that like a bit different modules. We said that every time that this is a brand new module, you can connect now. It wasn't, every module, although they were related and there's a bit of a scope and sequence, really you could join, if you like digital citizenship, you could join for that. Or if you like digital citizenship, you could join for that. Or did I say that twice? Like, anyway, storytelling.
You really like digital citizenship.
I do. I really do. Anyway, who else was talking there? I think Susan was.
Yeah. So I don't think there's a way to measure that, Alec. And I think having been a co-conspirator in OCL MOOC, I realized that because I know I had a friend who did OCL MOOC, but she wasn't really visible. But I do know that she learned a lot by jumping in when she could, how she could. And so I think, and And because of all of the different MOOCs and online communities that we've been involved in, I keep on running into new people and connecting them in a new way and find out they were an ETMOOCer. So I don't think that there's a, we call them ETMOOCers anyway, there's no way to measure. I don't think everyone was lost. They each learned in their own way, and then they connected and could be still connecting down the road, because we've left the door open, which I think is phenomenal. And again, you modeled that, so that's what we all welcome, all welcome. I hear that in my head lots of times. So that's what happens when you invite people in.
Sorry, go ahead, Erin.
Oh, sorry, I talk a lot. Go ahead, Jeff.
See how polite we all are here.
Canadians or something.
Exactly. You know, it's a really difficult question you're asking, but and it's fascinating because it's a difficult way to learn as a learner. Difficult. It's different, right? And it takes some energy, and it takes some confidence, some trust. I think, you know, the people who probably get attracted to it first are a little bit more comfortable with that self-directed thing, or they're willing to be pulled along. So for me, I mean, the thing in the back of my mind is there seems to be something about if you want to, the more you want to increase the access, you need to have more space that's almost like pre-course, right? Or helping people learn how to learn in this and bringing them into that culture before you even get started, because it's a challenge even for, I mean, I see it in our graduate students, you know, who are, you know, well-to-do, educated folks. They just have a hard time making that switch sometime to learning this thing. So there's something about giving people more of an on-ramp.
So like a pre-course that kind of goes on, continuous pre-course that sort of kind of pushes people into the course all the time. Like that'd be kind of neat. Yeah, I'd thought of that.
Well, Glenn, who's one of our ETMOOC friends online, I was just checking out Twitter here, and he had sort of mentioned the whole fact that sometimes people almost feel like burnt out, like there's such a pace when you get really into something, and sometimes it's just sort of like you get so exhausted because you've been so into something, and then it's like you need a break or a pause because you get the momentum going, and then suddenly it's like, oh, I ignored part of my real life to like be here all the time.
You know, I hadn't even thought of. I had an email a couple days ago, and it just reminded me, and something in this conversation reminded me of this too, that people do. I mean, this participating in this way, doing, you know, collaborate sessions. I mean, there's a lot of issues around times and so on. But one of the MOOC participants that none of you know about was a woman from Moscow who basically she would watch and lurk and watch recordings of the collaborate sessions, and she would kind of follow along the blog and read blogs, but she never ever said a word. Her only intersection with the course, other than lurking, was sending me emails, and her emails were just simply responses to questions that week, and it was just simply an email communication between her and I. And she just asked again because she was interested in, you know, doing this again. But it was weird, and not weird, but it was just her way of learning. And I thought it was actually one of the really most interesting parts of ETMOOC for me as a facilitator, is just this single person just kind of communicating with me back and forth through email. And she said that she was not social, she didn't want to communicate in ideas, but she just wanted to structure. And I thought that was really weird. And that also reminds me of like the work that Valerie Irvine's doing at University of Victoria, where they're talking about multi-access, which allows basically, rather than us define the way that you collaborate in a course or the way that you see it, whether, you know, we often pick hybrid or online or face-to-face as the mode, rather than us decide as instructors or conspirators or whatever we want to call ourselves, make the course in a way that can be achieved in any possible way, and have the students decide how they interact, whether it's synchronous, asynchronous, face-to-face, blended, or whatever else. But, you know, make that on the decision of the participants. And I think that's really rather brilliant stuff, actually.
Well, last year when I was living in Japan, so I was doing your DC MOOC, but I wasn't at the same time as Saskatchewan. And the archives were my thing. I did everything sort of like watching it after it happened, and I felt sort of separated from it, but I still felt like I could be a part of it, but it looked probably a lot different than when I live in Alberta and I'm participating like real time.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm very much still playing with what we're all talking about here in the sense of sometimes participating in connectivist MOOCs where there's lots of people, sometimes facilitating courses where there's anywhere from 15 to about 45 or 50 people. And I find that it's the most simple things that will draw people back in. If I notice as I look over the class roster that somebody hasn't been around for a week or two, I'll shoot them an email or I'll just post something on our class bulletin boards, seeing where they're at, and that ups the levels of engagement from everybody, not just the one person I addressed. I've even gone the route of answering people's questions by making a quick phone call to them, and it's so refreshing for us to remember it doesn't all have to be in the online environment. We still have the telephone. We still have carrier pigeons. It engages people where they want to be engaged.
Cool. So we're getting close to the end, and we have one last final question, and I guess this is to help you as experienced, MOOCers, at MOOCers or otherwise. What are your tips or ideas for allowing the connected courses people to establish and nurture a long-term community? So there are many people engaged in this experience right now. So, what are some simple tips that it would allow us, or those connected to this particular community to take it beyond sort of the formalized structure of, of where sort of the course typically ends, I guess, and how do we move beyond that? So what are your thoughts on keeping C courses or connected courses connected?
For sure following the hashtag, right? That kept us connected in the beginning, I think, following the @MOOC hashtag and being involved in the Google Plus community. That allowed us to go to 2 different spaces, I think, in the very beginning to connect and then invite other people to join us in whatever we were doing. Those 2 communities allowed that and still allow that to happen. So I can reach out today to someone I haven't seen in @MOOC in over a year and know that if I ask them, would they share a resource, would they do something, would they, help with this, they'd say yes. They haven't said no yet anyway.
I guess it's a nice thing about not having this in a closed sort of governed space like a course management system. Like, we can't archive the community. The community still exists whether we want it to or not. It'll exist in, the hashtag. I mean, the Google Plus community we could close, but what would be the point of doing that? And I think that's David Wiley and John Mott talk about that a lot. Like in typical sort of course management systems, we just basically we create this community and then we shut them off. Then we create this community, then we shut them off or archive it, and we sort of totally disrespect the idea of community in learning management systems. Whereas if you look at a PLN, if people are building a personal learning network, there's no real reason for it to end. And I think, as you mentioned, Susan, like hashtags, Google Plus community are ways of extending it. So other ideas or thoughts in terms of keeping people connected?
Well, if there's anything really revolutionary about what's happening here, and I hate to use the revolutionary word with the big R, but what's happening is we are understanding that it's going to come from the learners. So if the learners in connected courses are as dedicated as we've been through @MOOC and exploring personal learning networks and the OCL MOOC course, if they have that same level of commitment, they're going to find each other, they're going to find us, we're going to find them, and we're all going to continue in informal ways through the communities that we've started to develop online. I think that's a big part of what's going on.
Yeah.
One of the things that we've tried to do with the post-MOOC group thing, that's almost 2 years old, is we sort of have tried to think of it almost like a book club or a topic club. Like, we'll come up with like sort of like a thing every month that, hey, anybody know any ideas around this topic or that topic? So it's not like a formal course, but it sort of gives us like a draw together or something to sort of like mini collaborate on to look at stuff. And so that's one of the things that Rhonda and Susan have done a really good job of like trying to coordinate for our post-MOOC group.
That's awesome.
I think a lot of the aspects are here already. There already is a strong community in the Twitter chats. I haven't had much time to be in the Google community, but when I'm in there already is a lot of conversation taking place, and there's a lot of familiar faces. There's new faces too, but I suspect you would have a hard time shutting the conversations down at the official end date because they've already started happening. And like Alex says, it's not a LMS where you can say, okay, we're turning the lights off now.
Closing time.
There are no lights to turn off here.
And I would say take a risk, like be a risk taker. So if you think you can't, like if someone has an idea and says, oh, you know what, I think I'd like you to join me in this collaboration, and you think you can't, do it anyway. Take that risk and jump in, because you'll probably make connections even more so if you do that than if you don't.
Yeah. The other thing that I thought was really awesome about MOOC, sorry, so many things, is that there was a variety of perspectives all the way from university all the way down to elementary teachers, parents, high school, junior high. So so many times in my life in the past, it was like I only talk to other counselors, or I only talk to other high school professionals, and realizing that I had so much to learn from like educators across the spectrum, and that maybe I could teach or share stuff with them too. So opening up the door so that it wasn't just like the same old was really cool.
All right. So, I mean, we've got about 4 minutes left. Any last thoughts or questions? Or Howard or Mia, do you have anything to say before we end up here?
I was just struck by the word transformation that was coming up a lot earlier in our conversation. And to me, that's always at the heart of the question of networked learning. How can it become a transformative experience for those involved? And it seems that everybody's got their own pace on this. I'll admit to you guys that when MOOC was just in the beginning stages, I signed myself up. But I dropped out just simply because I was overwhelmed with all the other millions of things that were going on in my life. And, you know, that was the first massive open online collaboration that I ever was a part of. So I watched from afar, and I learned so much from all of you. And when it came time for me to be able to participate in a way that was comfortable for me, and it was emerging from a different community, the National Writing Project community, which is a network that I was already established in. I, sort of flew like a bird. I found that sort of soaring feeling of connecting with other people. But the reason why is because I watched, because I lurked. So, just to emphasize as a kind of ending point, I guess, transformation happens in places that you can't even see it happening, not even in yourself sometimes, right? But these things are wonderful. When people are generous, essentially, it sows the seed of the germination of so much can happen. And, watching community build is also sort of a powerful learning process, and I think that's what MOOC gave for me as a sort of out the gate kind of experience with this. And obviously, I've picked up on a lot of tips since that time. So.
So we're getting near the end, and so I just wanted to maybe just thank everybody. Aaron, Jeff, and Paul, and I just want to make sure I go around here, Rhonda and Susan, and of course me and Howard. Thanks for, first of all, I was very, very fortunate to be able to connect with so many of you that I consider my friends today, and it's great to hear, sort of your stories and your successes, that you've taken little things away from the experience, and of course I'm always taking things away from the experience too. And I think, the last thing that besides the humanity that many of you have brought up, and the humanness and the playfulness and all of that sort of stuff, I think part of what happened was just, the luck and the timing of finding such splendid people at the right time and to be able to connect with them, and it's really kind of amazing how learning can continue. And I think we're in a time that where, for me, it's just unprecedented. I'm very lucky to have such a rich and active and engaging and friendly and human learning network, and so it's just awesome to connect with you all. Thanks for just giving up your time tonight on the day before Remembrance Day in Canada, and I know that many of you are hopefully home tomorrow or that sort of thing, and of course many of you are doing amazing things around the world. So I want to thank you very much tonight on behalf of Connected Courses and the co-facilitators for this week, Howard and Mia. We've learned a lot from you, so thanks again.
Thank you so much.
Thanks all.
Thank you. Thanks, Alec.
Thanks, everyone.
Nice to see everyone.
Good night.
We'll see you again.